All right, so this question says a water treatment plant starts out with 2,000 milligrams of chemical in a water sample. Each hour, the amount of chemical that remains in the water is halved. Write an equation that represents the amount of chemical remaining in the water after X hours, and we're to calculate the amount of chemical lost from the water after 2 hours. So again, always start with reading your question carefully, making sure that you're pulling out, annotating important information. So it starts out with 2,000 milligrams of chemical each hour. We're noticing that the amount is halved, and that word halved means it's the same as the fraction 1/2. So this is what remains. And then we are to write an equation for the amount of chemical remaining. So our equation is going to focus on the remaining amount. And then we're also going to be calculating, this is a really packed question. We're going to calculate amount of water, of chemicals, sorry, lost after 2 hours. So those are the things that we're concerned with. So let's get into it. So we know that our initial value is 200 milligrams. We know that it's losing half of the chemical each hour. And then we're going to write an equation that represents this situation. So let's go. So based on what we know, the initial value is 2,000. The fraction lost is 1/2. So if 1/2 is lost, it means 1/2 remains. And the way we set this up, remember we showed you earlier on, so that 1 is going to be 2/2. So whatever your denominator is, the numerator is going to be the same. 2 divided by 2 is 1. That's how we're getting 1. That's 1/2. Keep your denominators, subtract your numerators. That's how we're getting the remaining amount. So the equation that represents the remaining amount is going to be y is equal to 2,000 times 1/2 raised to the x. So now we're going to use that to calculate the amount of chemical that has been lost over 2 hours. So we want to find out how much chemical remains first, and then we can subtract that from what was initially there. So when we look at this, here's what we're getting. So the amount of chemical lost after 2 hours, we want to figure out how much remains first. So we're using that equation that calculates how much remains. So it's 2,000 times 1/2 raised to the second power. And when we do that, we only have like 500 milligrams of chemical remaining. So in order to find out how much chemical was lost, we're going to take that 500 milligrams from the initial amount, which was 2,000. So we're seeing that we actually, in the space of 2 hours, had 1,500 milligrams of chemical lost.